It's now time for this week's State of Wrestling.
How are you doing, world, ladies and gentlemen? Please welcome back to the State of Wrestling. I was going to say for the first time in a long time, but for the first time in like a couple weeks because you were on a couple weeks ago. But for the very first time, believe it or not, live in the Notsam studio, Miss Katie Linendoll. Welcome.
Studios are amazing.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. It's very good.
Amazing.
It's very good to have you here to help me. I see that you picked your own cast. You know, on the table are various WWE, horror movie, Simpsons, action figures.
But mostly WWE.
I mean, the majority is WWE. That, by the way, is...
You know who I didn't see?
Huh.
Okay, first off, I've never seen more wrestling figures in my life.
Right.
I'm really,
Tell
really
that to
impressed.
stupid Zack Ryder, and I didn't have to go on eBay to get him.
I'm really impressed.
Good. Woo,
You know
woo,
who I
woo. You
didn't
know
see?
it. Who?
I think I might have one on you.
Who?
But it's not technically, I don't know if it's like a Mattel.
If it's Ludwig Borg, I'm going to be pissed.
No, keep going. Come
I
on.
don't know-
You
I don't
my
know.
character palette.
Yeah, I mean, I know, but I'm sure I have him.
Shark Boy.
No.
I know it doesn't count because you're going to say it's not WWE, but technically, you have a lot of weird stuff here. You don't have Shark Boy, do you?
I don't know for sure because there's a lot of.
I got one on you.
You might. I might have to get that from you actually because there's a lot of.
That will be my housewarming gift.
Yeah, I
to
might.
you.
I might need that from you because
Class
there's.
up the joint.
I found because I'm going through bins of all kinds of old figures. I found a TNA Conan figure.
Okay.
Which who has a Conan figure from TNA?
It's strong.
But I found one, and I do, and I've got a Sabu and Raven from TNA.
Do you have like an ODB from TNA?
I don't think they made an ODB.
Well,
But they did
should've.
make a Shark Boy.
We get that 3D
You have,
printed.
well, yeah, if you could 3D print me an ODB and give me your Shark Boy, I think we'll be all set.
Deal.
But welcome, Katie Linendoll. You know by now, I mean, you were one of the OGs of the State of Wrestling. We now break down the top 5 stories according to me,
Yes.
the last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts, in
It's
the
true.
world of wrestling.
It's true.
And I want to dive deep, I think, really into number 1. So we're going to probably not spend a ton of time on the top 5, but they all bear mentioning,
Of course.
if that makes sense. So my 5th story of the top 5 is a bit of a sleeper in the sense that it went down on Sunday. We did a pre-show for it on the Patreon.
Like a chloroform sleeper?
People, not a WrestleMania 9 sleeper.
You know where I was going.
Yeah, well, I would hope it's WrestleMania 9. Otherwise, we're going off brand. But not. No, it's Starrcade. Starrcade 2018, the first televised Starrcade in I think they said either 17 or 18 years, went down on the WWE Network on Sunday. It came without boxes. It came without bags. It came without ribbons. However the rest of the Grinch goes. What I'm saying is people enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it. But it certainly, for people that grew up with Starrcade as one of the most important shows of the year, because a lot of people did. A lot of people that were raised with WCW, people that were raised with the NWA, Starrcade was on a WrestleMania type of level.
Really? You would put it there?
100%.
Okay.
For them. Like
Okay.
I think you and I were both kind of raised the same way in the sense
I
that
see.
we were...
For them is a big add-on.
Well, yeah, because we were WWE kids.
Correct.
So, like, King of the Ring was still the end-all, be-all in 93 for us.
Truth.
But if you weren't a WWE kid and you were raised NWA, you were raised Crockett, you were raised WCW, you were raised Turner, Starrcade was their big event. So I think it's worth noting that, the big return happens and it's a televised house show, and it's really just part of a televised house show. I think that while some people were going, this is not Starrcade, this isn't fair to Starrcade, blah, 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 I thought it was more cool to see what could be the future of the WWE Network in the sense that we got to see a live event on the WWE Network. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't so much looking at it as this is Starrcade, because it's not Starrcade. I mean, there was Starrcade when WCW was around, and then it went away. They happened to call this show Starrcade. That's really all that it has in common.
Do you think they shouldn't have called it Starrcade?
I'm biased probably in the same way that you are, in the sense that I don't have this attachment to Starrcade. Like, I didn't sit there excited every December because Starrcade was right around the corner. I knew it was a big WCW pay-per-view, but like I said, I was a WWF kid. I was a WWE kid. So I was more excited about literally all WWE pay-per-views than Starrcade. So I think I'm a little biased in the sense that I don't, the tradition of Starrcade doesn't really mean much to me. I think it's cool that they're at least acknowledging the brand and going like, hey, we're going to a city that maybe WCW was big in. I think Cincinnati was a good market for them. That's where they were this year. Last year, of course, North Carolina, that was a bigger deal in Greensboro because that's where a lot of Starrcades were. So, I mean, I don't mind just acknowledging the fact that every holiday season, whether it's the weekend after Thanksgiving or just between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there is an acknowledgement to Starrcade. I think more on those levels, like it's just a tip of the hat to Starrcade than I do, oh, that's disrespectful. Starrcade means more than that. Because, you did have Samoa Joe versus AJ Styles in a steel cage, right? You did have Ric Flair out there. Like, it wasn't just a run-of-the-mill random show so much. And I also think it added... So, I think if you want to test the idea of putting house shows on the network, which I think WWE is probably pretty interested in doing, there needs to be a reason, right? You can't just say, hey, we want to see if this works, so we're putting on Saturday's house show on the WWE network. People go, what are you talking about? Like, there's no... But if you call the house show Starrcade, now there's a reason to put it on the network.
Do you think you have to pass back some of that, what was the old school version of it, or do you think you take on a whole new production quality? Or can you not do that?
What do you mean?
Do you change it up entirely and just call it Starrcade?
Well, no, I mean, I think there was enough, like they talked about the fact that Starrcade was a tradition. Ric Flair was on the show. I mean, beyond that, I don't know how much you want to do, right? I don't know how much is even good for the business. I don't know how much, like to spend so much time acknowledging tradition. It's like WrestleMania. We're going on WrestleMania 35. There's always going to be a big deal made about the fact that this is the 35th WrestleMania, but the headline of WrestleMania should always be...
It snowed.
I hope so.
Me too.
Oh my God, do I hope so. But and it really should be that it snowed. But it should be whatever was happening in the main event as it pertains to the current active today's product.
Do you bring back Al Snow? Okay, I'm done.
Because in case
It's
it
going
snows.
there.
Right, no,
Okay,
I get
okay,
it. I get it. So I thought it was, I liked that Starrcade was on.
I like the acknowledgement.
Right, and I liked that it gave a reason for live events to be televised, because I hope that there's more televised live events, because as I talked about with the international pay-per-views, I just think it's cool that with the WWE network, you can run shows. At times there wouldn't be a show. Like maybe some random Sunday you could have a 1 hour special, right? Maybe if we're going to Australia, we can do a show at 4 o'clock in the morning. Why not? It's our network. And I think that I love the idea of like waking up at Saturday and being like, oh yeah, there's a live pay-per-view on right now. And Triple H is wrestling The Undertaker. I just woke up. Let's watch. You know why? WWE's got their own network.
Because
why
we
not?
can.
Because we can.
Is it nerdy of me to still think about the business side of the network?
No, of course not. I think that's interesting.
I think it's fascinating like, even when you're saying televising a live house show, the production that goes into that, and also it's not cheap to do a live production in any capacity, no matter how scaled down it is. But also then it brings me to the larger question at hand is how is the network doing? Did it make sense to put every single pay-per-view and so many pay-per-views per month on? I don't know. Do you have the same questions?
I do. I mean, I think the network's doing really well. I think by all accounts, everybody's really happy with the network. They've got over 1 million subscribers. And
it's just such a bold move to think back that not too long ago, we were literally paying like $80 for a pay-per-view.
Yeah. No, is
that lost on you yet? Because I still revisit it and I'm like, whoa.
It is a bold move, but I also think that WWE wanted to tell the world that the network is not in addition to. Like, this is the new way to watch our product. Not, hey, and if you're a big wrestling fan, you can get all the home video libraries on this network for $10. It's, we're putting out this network, and this is how you watch WWE. I think WWE's vision for this network is more like Netflix, in the sense that Netflix changed the way people watch television, right? All together. You don't just you have to have Netflix, right? And I think if you're a wrestling fan, you have to have the WWE network. And I don't know if that have to have thing is there if all those pay-per-views aren't there. And WWE is smart enough to go, look, we have to see where this business is going. WWE's always been really good about seeing the future. I mean, I know I just saw you in Los Angeles hanging out in the VR booth. Like, what company is putting that kind of effort and money into producing VR content? The whole pay-per-views in virtual reality.
And not even in my words alone, they sit back and wait for just the right time where it is future enough, but it's also like, let's see if this is going to work before we hop into it.
Right.
I don't know if we could say that for the network, though, actually.
How do you mean?
Because I think they were pretty out the gate quick to do something of this nature. So maybe I'm negating myself.
You mean like they were way ahead of the curve,
like,
almost to the point where it's a risk?
Yeah, VR we know is like companies are doing it.
Yeah,
brands
right.
are doing it. Like it's, but it's still.
Yeah, whereas Dana White was literally saying, "This is a terrible thing WWE is doing." It's when they announced the network, he said it's degrading the value of the product. That's what Dana White said. I'm not asking you to agree.
It was ahead of its time.
Yeah, but I think it was the right move. You know, I think that 100% it was the right move. That's the way people are consuming content. And, you know, and I think the WWE's been smart enough. I mean, the company's only done better since the networks come out. And they've made their money back. I mean, look at the money they're making in their TV deals now. Right? Like, you have to look at the business as a whole, not just how many dollars did this pay-per-view bring in? How many dollars is this pay-per-view bringing in today? It's, what is the company doing? Okay, we're going to be way ahead of the curve with this network, and we're going to lose money over here.
Bigger picture.
But, exactly, the bigger picture is we're building this brand. They realize that's why the TV isn't going to the network. They're still signing TV deals because in 2018, why would anybody watch television? Because it's live, right? That's the only reason to really watch television.
Yes.
You know? And wrestling fans are the only ones, no matter how much they complain about how much the show sucks, wrestling fans are going to tune in and watch the show, and they're going to have to watch it live, right? Like, you know, I'm sure that Hulu numbers do well, but not, you know, people are still tuning in on USA to watch Raw and SmackDown because you have to watch it live, because you got to live tweet it, and you got to know what everybody's talking about the next day. Otherwise, all these podcasts that jamokes like me are putting out, everybody's going to be behind. You got to watch live.
You got to watch live unless it's the 90s and it's preempted by the dog show.
That was a shame. And historically,
that was awful.
I mean, you talk about being on the wrong side of history, which Baron Corbin addressed on Raw. I would say the Westminster Kennel Club was on the wrong side of history.
Absolutely agree.
So, speaking of business and the way we look at things, I was talking to Wade Keller about Brock Lesnar and the potential fight with Daniel Cormier and where that might leave him for WrestleMania and all this stuff. And I didn't even consider, right? So, and this will be story number 4. I didn't even consider the fact that Brock Lesnar, because I said, okay, the rumors are that the Brock Cormier fight may go down sometime in the new year, but before April.
That's crazy, actually.
Those are where rumors are, right? So I was like, okay, that makes sense.
Did you read it online?
I read it on the internet.
Then it's real.
Okay, yeah, all right. So it's a fact, not a rumor. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I go, okay, well, that makes sense. You can have him maybe do a match at Royal Rumble, maybe, and then do UFC, and then come back for WrestleMania. And Wade Keller pointed out to me, what happens if he gets injured at UFC? And I was like, I don't know. Will he really get injured? Story number 4, Tom Lawler, who wrestles for MLW, I don't know if you know him or not, but he's awesome. He fought at the Golden Boy MMA show over the weekend that Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz fought at. He was fighting right under them, and I think he broke his hand. I think that was his injury. But he broke his hand, which is putting him out of action for a little while. And that's when it really clicked in. And technically the story number 4 is the Tom Lawler story. But in the context of, if Brock Lesnar fights before WrestleMania, and he carries the Universal Championship into WrestleMania, which he very well might. I mean, Stephanie said we're getting the Braun Strowman-Brock Lesnar match at Royal Rumble, right? Didn't she say we were doing Baron Corbin, Braun at the pay-per-view at TLC, and then Braun Brock theoretically at Royal Rumble. So either Braun wins the title and Brock goes on to UFC, or Braun loses, Brock carries the title into UFC. But is it worth putting because obviously you want the Universal Championship to walk into the octagon, right? It's a commercial for WWE, I think. Is it worth the commercial to risk not having a Universal Champion at WrestleMania? Do you follow me?
You really think the Universal Championship is going to go into the octagon?
If Brock is the champion, my own personal theory, I haven't talked to anybody about it. I believe that Brock will make WWE pay him more to hold the title.
Oh, that's $1 million right there.
Right, the same way he's got Jimmy John's on his trunks, he's going to make WWE pay for the advertisement of being around his waist. But I think WWE...
Are you just going to throw Heyman in there too?
Well, no, that's ridiculous.
It's a twofer. It's the holiday season.
No, I do think that the Universal
Coming
title...
up with Cyber Weekend sales.
I do think the Universal title will make an
You're
appearance.
serious right now.
If Brock is the champion.
You're acting like it's not even a long shot.
If Brock keeps the title, I think it's not a long shot. If Brock is the Universal Champion when he fights Daniel Cormier, I would assume, not only would I think, I would assume that he'll walk into the octagon with the Universal Championship.
For $1 million.
Maybe.
What's your over-under on that?
I mean, I don't know if $1 million is the figure, but it could be. I think he'll get paid. But I think that
$500,000.
Exactly. Yeah, I think he'll bring it in. Now, my ultimate fantasy is that Brock beats Daniel Cormier, becomes the UFC heavyweight champion, and walks into WrestleMania
I see what you did there.
with the Universal title and the UFC heavyweight championship. I think that would look even cooler than walking into the octagon. I mean, as badass as Brock is, do you know how much more badass he would become if he walked into a WWE ring with the UFC heavyweight championship?
I think that just goes to show like the legitimacy of Rousey and the Four Horsewomen, new age, coming in. Like that just adds value.
Yeah, Shayna and Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir. Yeah. But that's.
And then what if he's also the cruiserweight champion? Okay, all right.
He may have to cut. He may have to cut weight, but he could do it.
Okay.
He's Brock. But yeah, so I that's the one concern. Now
you can't tell me though that there's not a clause in terms of going back to your initial point.
Yeah.
About getting hurt potentially.
Right. What would the clause?
There's got to be a clause in the contract that doesn't allow him to fight at a certain time period. But for something like WrestleMania.
Look, there's never been a contract that would allow a person to wrestle in WWE and UFC at the same time. That's insane.
It's a different time, man.
Exactly. So you're right. But who knows what these clauses are? Like, it's an unheard of deal.
You think that got past WWE legal? No way.
Well, look.
No way.
Here's why. Because WWE is smart. WWE is an incredibly evolved company in the sense that, like, they're way more into, apparently, doing business outside of WWE than ever before. And they realize that win or lose, Brock Lesnar walking into the octagon with the Universal Championship is a great commercial for WrestleMania.
Absolutely.
Even if he loses in one round to Daniel Cormier, they go, okay, to keep Brock happy. Like if Brock goes, well, I'm not signing unless I can fight in UFC. And they're like, okay, well, we would really like to have Brock here. It's worth it. Well, how about this, Brock? You can fight in UFC, but you're bringing in the Universal title. Like these are the deals that are probably, one would assume, getting made. And, you know, I still think it would be in the WWE's best interest. I think it would be in everyone's best interest to try to get the UFC fight between Brock and Cormier happening before WrestleMania, even though, especially after the Tom Lawler thing, it leaves us in a situation where it's a risk.
Wow.
I think so.
At the end of the day, everyone has a price, except me.
Even IRS for the tax man?
Yep.
They couldn't pay you to go to UFC?
Nope. I'm just saying a price in general.
Oh, I see. You're not a sellout is what you're saying.
Nope.
I see. Well, depending on the dollar figure. If you want Katie to do something, she won't do it. I'll do it.
No, Sam will definitely do it.
Right, for the money.
Me, I have integrity.
Yeah. Me, I have pockets that need filling. Right? Money. Let me know what you want me to say, do, pay me.
Game on.
All good. All good.
Yep.
Let's move on to story number 3. Story number 3 is a story that was actually, now it's being bandied about on WWE commentary, and that is Lars Sullivan. My question is, Raw, SmackDown, who needs him more?
First off, I think he looks like...
Let's talk about the character.
Yeah,
right?
Let's start there.
There you go. So
Because actually, I wanted to ask you about this, and I was
Yeah.
going to text you to get... He kind of looks like somebody, but I can't put my pulse on it. He definitely looks like Baron Corbin's uncle, but somebody much, much grandiose in past.
like a wrestler?
Let's dig. Yeah.
I have no idea. I've never seen anybody that looks like Lars Sullivan, I don't
Really?
think. I'm sure somebody will come. George the
Someone
Animal
will-
Steel?
No. Someone,
Somebody will tweet it in.
Khali style. Someone big.
I thought you said Kalisto. I was like, it's not Kalisto.
No.
But, okay, so the conversation that's going on commentary is he's coming to the main roster. They're calling him the hottest free agent, blah, blah, blah.
Wait, he's coming to main roster already?
Yeah, the vignettes are running. He's coming. He's main roster bound.
Is that the vignettes that they were ripping on kind of a little bit?
No.
Or that was NXT stuff?
Yeah, I don't.
Okay,
I think
you're
that was
fill
something
me
else.
in, fill me in, sorry.
Yeah, the vignettes are coming. It's just the monster Lars Sullivan is coming,
Okay.
and he is being described as the hottest free agent that there is right now. Raw team is saying like, "Oh, I hope he ends up on Raw." SmackDown team is saying, "I hope he ends up on SmackDown." Where would you
I think this is a leap of a conversation, but okay.
for the quality of the programming?
Okay.
Where do you put Lars Sullivan?
205 Live.
Boy, would he make just Lord Destruction out of everybody on 205 Live.
No, for real. For real.
Yeah. Where does that...
I'm going to throw that one back to you.
Well, I was thinking about it a lot.
Really?
Of course I was. I think about it all a lot. And
You thought about this more than refinancing your mortgage. It's
you can
also-
refinance a mortgage? Huh.
Yep.
Well, I'll leave that one to the experts.
Yeah.
I got to keep thinking about Lars Sullivan. So, Raw, obviously, you have to be careful with the monsters that you put on Raw because you've got Braun Strowman. Braun Strowman is the ultimate monster of all monsters in the company, right?
Great.
So you got to be careful that nobody goes, number one, nobody outshines Braun, and number two, nobody gets outshined by Braun, right? So if a monster shows up on Raw, how do you delicately make it so, number one, he doesn't make Braun look like a wimp, but they also don't have Braun make him look like a wimp.
Right.
Because if he shows up, all of a sudden Braun and him are arguing over who's the bigger badass. One of them is going to get buried by the whole thing because you can't come in, be this amazing badass, have Braun destroy you, and then still be an amazing badass because people will be like, yeah, but I like Braun. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So there's that.
Fair. Okay.
SmackDown, you don't really have any...
Is it filling a void there?
You don't really have any monsters on SmackDown. But you've got a different type of monster. You've got monsters that are a little bit more psychological in their pursuit. Samoa Joe, I think, is a monster in the sense that he doesn't have his lack of humanity makes him a monster. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Right. Did you hear what he said
Yeah.
about Jeff Hardy this week?
It's true.
Horrible things.
Yeah.
You know why? He didn't have feelings. You know why? Samoan monster. Right? You've got Randy Orton, a man who tore off poor Rey Mysterio's mask. What kind of man would do that?
Unacceptable.
No kind of man. You know what kind of being would do that? Monster. Those are the monsters of SmackDown. To me, I think if we learned anything this week, it's that Raw is in more need of fresh blood than SmackDown.
Really?
Yep, that there is more need of an injection of the unpredictable into Raw. And I think you could spend a lot of time building up Lars Sullivan, keeping him very far away from Braun Strowman for a year if you have to the point where eventually you could have this clash of the Titans. But before you do that, you spend a long time turning Lars Sullivan into a Titan. I would put him on Raw. And the reason is, I don't think SmackDown needs it. I don't think SmackDown is lacking almost anything at this point.
I mean, they got swept in Survivor Series.
Yeah, but it's not being addressed. If you watch the show, it's like nobody cares. I thought Shane
that
McMahon
happened.
cared, but he don't care. He's fine with it.
All right. Point made.
He's like, whatever. It's over. I got my trophy. That's what Shane's saying. So, I mean, when I watch the show, I'm not sitting there going
I don't
like...
think you can keep him far enough away from Braun as you think.
That could be an issue. Yeah. And, I mean, the Authors of Pain had a similar story to Lars Sullivan, and they had a tough time. They're having a tough time on Raw.
Who do you see him?
Their manager's peeing on things.
Oh, that's true.
We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get
it's
there.
Interesting.
We got 2 stories left, so we'll get there.
Who do you think you do right out the gate?
Lars Sullivan with?
Yeah.
Honestly, I would have Lars Sullivan walk in and leave No Way Jose and all of his dancers in a flaming heap. Like, just really...
Oh, as like an aside, not as like a match.
No, I mean like first night out, maybe even first pay-per-view, whatever it is. Like just No Way Jose would be the sacrificial lamb handed to Lars Sullivan. Not like a long-term, finally we're getting to see this battle. Just, we used to be able to have fun on Raw, but Lars Sullivan has come and killed everything.
Oh.
And then, I mean, I think a Seth Rollins, Lars Sullivan thing
That's
eventually
strong.
could be interesting. I think... there's a few guys on Raw. Obviously I would keep Lars Sullivan a heel. I think that's where he works best. And Braun Strowman as a kind of good guy. You don't need 2 good guy monsters.
P.S. It just hit me.
What did? Who did?
Who Lars Sullivan reminds me of.
Who?
Somebody else is going to have this thought. Maybe.
Who?
Dr. Isaac Yankem.
DDS?
Yep.
You know
He's
what?
a mix of him and Kane. I know it's the same person.
Lars Sullivan is a mix of
just
Isaac
saying.
Yankem and Kane?
Yeah,
Does
he's
that
like
make him the fake Diesel?
What is it? What do you mean by that?
He played the fake Diesel as well.
Isaac Yankem.
And Kane.
Okay,
Mayor Jacobs.
I thought you were trying to combine 2 people and then move them in a cloning program.
It's all one person. It's all
Understood.
Mayor Jacobs.
Okay. Mayor Jacobs.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
It's awesome.
Knoxville.
Awesome.
Yeah, I guess that it's the jaw. It's the pronounced jaw, I think.
Perhaps.
Because I see it. I
Okay.
see it. And then, they're big guys. You're right about that. I see the pronounced jaw. But so I personally would find a spot for Lars Sullivan on Raw. Now, we talked about SmackDown, and that moves me to story number 2. And story number 2 was SmackDown is just so fabulous right now.
Oh.
I thought it was just great on Tuesday. Now, there's one flaw on SmackDown, and that's, as we were walking into Crown Jewel, it was so important to everybody that a SmackDown athlete won the World Cup of WWE. It was so important that Shane McMahon threatened to fire anybody that lost in the finals of that tournament, right? So that was important. Then the whole build-up to Survivor Series, brand loyalty, brand supremacy was so important. We're now 2 episodes removed from Survivor Series. And as I said earlier, not one mention of getting... Well, I mean, they've mentioned it, but not one mention of consequences for getting swept.
That's swept under the rug in
Right.
itself.
I mean, honestly, like Charlotte was portrayed as a hero on SmackDown for what she did to Ronda Rousey, when in reality, Charlotte hitting Ronda Rousey with a Singapore cane, as awesome as it was, if we're jumping into storyline... When Charlotte hit Ronda Rousey with the Singapore cane, it added another win to the Raw side and really strengthened that 0 on the SmackDown side. You know what I mean? And you would think that there'd be somebody on SmackDown that was going like, hey, I'm really pissed that Charlotte blew it. Hey, I'm really pissed that all you guys blew it. Even Daniel Bryan. Now, the matches were all amazing. The pay-per-view was great. But I just mean storyline-wise, you would think there'd be somebody on SmackDown pissed that they lost every match, except that tag team match in the pre-show that we found out didn't count.
Oh.
They went 0-6. That's the official word on everything. But beyond that, I think SmackDown is just a great cohesive show. They're doing a great job of combining storyline and wrestling. I think they're just they're even in a good spot with the WWE Championship. I thought the whole AJ Samoa Joe story was really well told, really made me care about the matches. And Daniel Bryan turning heel, the promo, I talked about it on the show last week, but the promo he had last week was great. I wish he had been on SmackDown this week, but that's only because he was so good last week, you know? But I think that AJ we're being reminded why we cheer for him. We're being reminded through sympathy why he's such a good guy, and he's really proving why he deserves to be champion in our minds. Yeah, I thought Samoa Joe interrupting Jeff Hardy's speech. Like, I was sitting there going, I guess this is the spot for Randy Orton to interrupt this speech. But Randy Orton just ripped up Rey Mysterio's mask last week. He's kind of busy. What's going to happen here?
Same thought.
And then when Jeff Hardy is like, thank you all. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun. I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. And, like, so everything Samoa Joe does is so real. When Shane McMahon stepped in front of him and was like, whoa, and Samoa Joe was just like, get out of my way. Like, really looked at him like, who the F do you think you are? Get the hell out of my way. And I was like, that's Samoa Joe, you know? And it made me believe, and he's not afraid to be a real bad guy. You know, he's not afraid to get on the mic and just be a bad person to make people go, I want to see him get his ass kicked. Samoa Joe, I read a statistic, has lost like every pay-per-view match that he's had for a year. It's been a year since Samoa Joe won a pay-per-view match, and nobody notices. No. You know why? Because he's so good at it. Like, usually that would really damage somebody. But when I tell you Samoa Joe's got a match, he still comes across as a major threat, right? Even though he loses all the time, you don't even acknowledge that he loses. He still comes across as a major threat. Yep. And that's because he's so good. I mean, he's made me not only, like, I want to see Jeff Hardy versus Samoa Joe at TLC because of that SmackDown promo. You know, I am interested in Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio. On paper, Randy Orton versus Rey Mysterio is kind of like, okay, like, that could be cool. But based on the last 2 weeks of SmackDown, I'm like, Rey has a score to settle here. I want to see that match now. You know, and that's invaluable. Becky Lynch is the hottest thing in wrestling right now. You know, the hottest thing in wrestling right now. Becky Lynch is hotter than the Elite is. You know, than the Young Bucks are. It's all Becky Lynch right now. This is
very strong.
Her moment, and she's within reach of being unanimously the biggest main roster star in WWE, not female, the biggest star. That's Becky Lynch is the athlete people are talking about. Like, when you talk to people that don't watch WWE anymore, that did at one point, that don't anymore, they all are like, yeah, but I'm interested in what this Becky Lynch is doing.
Really?
100%. I mean, I've literally had the conversations. Ariel Helwani was just talking about it on the MMA show. I think
that's great, but you're going to put her over Rousey right now?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, listen to the audience. They booed Ronda.
Yeah, but you just said a non-wrestling audience.
Yeah, but listen to the WWE audience.
Oh my gosh, it's huge.
They care about Becky more.
Which I think is interesting to watch the last 2 months transpire to hit that point.
Right. It's real life and it's organic. With Becky.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what, yeah.
But getting cheered.
But even a non-wrestling audience becomes aware when there's somebody who's like, when it's somebody who's like Becky Lynch, like Ronda Rousey, you expect. Like, don't get me wrong. A non-wrestling audience is still very interested in Ronda Rousey. A wrestling audience still very interested in Ronda Rousey. The Ronda Rousey experiment, let's call it, has been nothing but success. Like, Ronda Rousey's amazing. She has taken to this stuff so well.
Yep.
Like,
agree.
Ronda Rousey is going to take the women's division has taken the women's division to the mainstream. Like, this is it. Ronda Rousey is that last step that the women in the WWE needed to take that division to that level. But it can't just be Ronda Rousey fighting the women of the WWE. You've actually developed an opponent in Becky Lynch that people are interested in. Like, if you were to tell me that it's Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania, a mainstream audience is not sitting there saying Ronda Rousey versus some WWE girl. They're saying, oh, that's she calls herself the Man. Like, oh, that's interesting. Like, oh, that's that Becky Lynch I keep hearing about. It's happening, you know? And it's amazing to see because it's not happening with other people at this moment. It has. But at this moment, Becky Lynch is the standout on both shows.
I feel it fair to give Charlotte a little of that spotlight,
She
too.
was amazing on SmackDown.
No, but there's no was. I think it's a current. I think it's what Charlotte has done to this day for the women's division. I think she's as mainstream as you're giving Becky Lynch, if not more.
It's less.
Oh, I disagree with you.
I mean, you're going to see the man T-shirts everywhere you go. You're not seeing Do It With Flair T-shirts everywhere you go.
You're seeing more people know who Charlotte Flair is.
Incorrect.
Subjective.
You'll see more people who know the name Flair, but not Charlotte.
Oh, another strong disagreement.
I mean,
I think she has paved her own path, undeniably.
I love Charlotte. Like, this isn't shade being thrown.
I understand.
But Charlotte is like, Charlotte for a long time has been the flag bearer for the women's division. Like, for a long time, I would say Charlotte is as close to a John Cena as the women's division has, right? Like, Charlotte is the standard bearer for the women's division. But Becky Lynch is becoming a bigger star than most of the men on the roster. And she's right there, but she doesn't surpass the men on the roster in terms of, like, fame. You know?
So that's a debate right there.
Yeah, I love it. And I think that Charlotte is, and look, Becky, I think, is the one that is really making the difference. I think Charlotte is completely stepping up to the plate and showing that she's just as good. I think Ronda's right there.
What planet are we on right now?
I mean, all you gotta do is watch the show.
I do. Clearly.
Yeah.
You're making a very bold statement right now.
Oh, yeah.
You're almost you're saying that Charlotte's got to work to get to where Becky is right now.
In this moment, yeah, for sure.
I'm not seeing eye to eye with you.
Let me ask you. Survivor Series. The Charlotte Ronda match that happened, 3 from the top was right where it should have been on the card, right? By the way, great match.
This isn't a fair assessment, though, because
no
that
build?
was like a...
That's fair. No, you're right.
No
build up. But
Oh, go ahead.
Becky Lynch, Ronda Rousey has become a bigger match. Even now, there's been build up.
But I don't think that's fair because I think the Charlotte story would have lived at a different time. I think it had to happen too quickly. I don't think those are two parallels.
But now there's been build up with Charlotte, right? Because we've had this match that had no real resolution. They've gone back and forth on TV.
Uh-huh.
It's still not as big a match if you announce that it's Ronda versus Becky.
But but again, I stand firm on that. I don't think that's fair because it was thrown into a time where it shouldn't have been thrown into.
So that kind of screwed everything
it kind
up.
of eclipses the whole...
We have to reassess the way we look at everything.
Correct.
Okay. Now, I'll tell you what I thought about the women's division. To me, the women's division is the best thing on SmackDown. The WWE Championships, everything is great on SmackDown. Almost everything is great on SmackDown. They're doing good with the tag teams. I think that going back to highlighting the Usos again, awesome, because they're so good. The WWE Championship story, as I said, is great. But I think that the women's division, to me, is the most compelling. They announced Charlotte versus Becky TLC in a TLC match, which I said, that's amazing, right? I love that. I didn't think I needed another Becky versus Charlotte match, but I'm on board. And then they said, actually, we're going to have a battle royal, and we're going to make it a triple threat. And I went, I don't know. When Asuka came out, it was the same thing that happened to her at Survivor Series. It was like, Asuka's another one. Well, you know how much I love Asuka. Uh-huh. Like, you've known this for a long time.
Yep.
And I'm so happy to see that even though she hasn't done all that much since WrestleMania, that not one fan is forgotten. Right? Like when Asuka comes out, even if she's not in a position to be the Asuka of old, no fan has accepted that. Like the reaction that Asuka gets is so much different. Asuka's right there with Charlotte and Becky is what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Even though she's kind of cast in the sort of general, here's the women in the division, Asuka's one of them. I think most of the fans know that Asuka deserves to be in that upper echelon of the division. Is that fair to say, do you think?
I don't think she's as big as Charlotte and Becky. I feel the same way. I think she's amazing.
Right.
Goes
Right.
without saying. I don't know if I'd put her at that level.
Well, here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So she gets put into the triple threat.
Yep.
It's Asuka versus Becky versus Charlotte. And immediately I said, fantastic. Fantastic. Here's what happens in the world of Sam Roberts, the last professional broadcaster.
Okay.
The triple threat, first of all, you can have an amazing match with these three women.
Oh,
Obviously, Becky doesn't mind throwing fists, right? We know Charlotte doesn't mind throwing fists. She was raised right by that dad of hers who, he'll get in there and scrap. Mm-hmm. And clearly, Asuka, the queen of strong style, doesn't mind kicking somebody as hard as she can in the face.
Where are you going with this, Sam?
Meaning this is going to be an incredible match. It's going to be a great TLC, brutal match. It's going to be great. What I would like to see is Asuka to shock the world. I don't think anybody sees this coming at this moment as we speak. Asuka should leave TLC the SmackDown Women's Champion.
You're crazy.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, Linendoll. That's what I was hoping you'd say.
No, you're crazy.
Okay, well, you want to stick with me on this one?
I do, but I also.
Or do you want to
hit?
You want to hit me? You want to hit me with your rebuttal now?
No,
Okay.
I'm still have one sentence to make though, and I gotta get it out of my system.
Say your sentence.
Okay, then it's a little bit of a digression. Just to hear me out.
That's fine.
The comparison you made with Becky and Charlotte. And sorry. Let me just come back for a second. Who's getting all the covers of magazines? Who's getting all the mainstream media press?
Getting or got?
Getting.
Got.
Okay. Prove me wrong on that.
Okay, because I'll say got.
Really?
Yeah.
You're already there. Mm-hmm. All right.
I mean, look,
I disagree.
The Becky thing is new.
No, you're wrong.
But we've never seen anything like Becky before.
No, and I don't want to sound like the bad guy here because I think where it's going
Razor
is
Ramon?
amazing. But I don't think it's there.
Okay, it is. But so.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to where we were.
Okay, because you already. First, I was crazy for what I said about Becky and Charlotte, and now I'm sitting here telling you Asuka needs to leave with the championship.
Yeah, you're making crazy statements.
And you're like, what the hell is going on with you, Robert?
Yeah. Are you on like bath salts?
I'll tell you. Yes, I'm about to eat your face. Listen. So, Asuka, we need to be reminded how good Asuka is. Because we haven't been since WrestleMania. Leading up to WrestleMania, she was undefeated forever. Like, there was a really good chance she was going to beat Charlotte at WrestleMania. There was half the audience said, I think Asuka's going to win. Half the audience said, I think Charlotte's going to win.
It's actually hard to think back to that point.
Exactly. Right. Because since WrestleMania, that's been swept under the rug. So, based on the fan reaction that she gets, that leads me to believe that everybody knows, everybody remembers, she won the Royal Rumble, Asuka. You remember in January? She won the Royal Rumble. The first ever Women's Royal Rumble was won by Asuka. And that's, again, something that, Asuka of this moment, she doesn't strike you as the woman who won the Royal Rumble this year, does she?
It's weird to think that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be reminded of that, and we would effectively be reminded of that if Asuka won the SmackDown Women's title. Now, triple threat rules. What does that mean? To become the champion, do you have to beat the champion? No. Asuka should pin Charlotte at TLC. Okay? Asuka leaves with the championship after pinning Charlotte. She never beat the champion. You protect Becky. Becky is still the man because she never even got beat. She lost the title, but she didn't get beat. Charlotte got pinned. Now, there's some kind of chicanery. Like, Asuka got a lucky pin, right? This isn't Asuka laid out Charlotte and is declared the winner. Asuka, just the timing was right. Maybe Becky hit Charlotte with something, and Asuka rolled her up or grabbed the... I don't know if it's going to be ladder match rules or not, but, Becky and Charlotte laid each other out, and Asuka ran up and grabbed the title.
Maybe a little ref gate.
Could be ref gate. Let's get Chuck Robinson involved. You know what I mean?
Screwing it up.
He screws it up every time.
Everything.
But this way, what are you left with? You're left with Asuka defending the title at the Royal Rumble, right? Theoretically.
Okay.
Unless she doesn't defend the title at the Royal Rumble. You're left with Charlotte saying, Asuka, you got lucky. I beat you at WrestleMania. You got a lucky win at TLC. I want my rubber match with you. I want my third match with you because I want that title. Becky, but you didn't beat me, Asuka. I want the title. I want the title match. At the same time, Ronda's over here. She's done with Nia Jax, Charlotte and Becky, and Ronda and Asuka, and now it's all kind of figuring out who's who. So where does this leave us? This leaves us at the second annual Women's Royal Rumble. And now you've got a potential of putting Charlotte and Becky in the Royal Rumble. Could you tell me right now who Ronda Rousey is going to face at WrestleMania? Or could you narrow it to two?
You go first.
It's either Charlotte or Becky. But you can't.
That's kind of a gimme, though, right?
Of course. But you can't call it between the two. Because the stories are still active with both. Right?
Okay.
Like it could, what I'm saying is it could be either of those two. Would you go with me on that?
Yes.
Definitely. So now, and by the way, not only do we know as fans that it could be either of those two with a match with Ronda at WrestleMania, but both of those two also have a problem with Asuka from TLC. So now we're in the Royal Rumble, and we've got Becky and Charlotte. We don't know who's going to win. Because one of them is clearly going to fight Asuka. One of them is clearly going to fight Ronda, but we don't know who's who. So the Royal Rumble is what's going to leave us with the opportunity to have that. I put Becky as the winner. Becky challenges Ronda Rousey. Because we don't know. I mean, as we're sitting there at the Royal Rumble, we're watching. I hope she challenges Ronda Rousey, but she very well may challenge Asuka because we know that the Charlotte versus Ronda match might happen as well. But she doesn't. She challenges Ronda, and now we're left with a WrestleMania where we've got a rematch between Asuka and Charlotte from last year, one of the best WrestleMania matches of the year last year, and we've walked our way into Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey. If Asuka wins the title at TLC, we can organically get to a WrestleMania where it's Becky Ronda and it's Charlotte Asuka.
That's a far projection.
But does it work?
But strong.
Thank you. Thank you. Wouldn't you be excited for WrestleMania if I told you those were the two women's title matches?
I'm excited for WrestleMania right now.
The number one story of the week is Monday Night Raw.
One fall. I wanted to do I was counting all of them down, sort of, half of them.
You didn't do that, not out loud though?
I did two, and then I did worry.
Did you?
Yeah.
I didn't even hear it. I didn't even pick up on it.
Kind of just deflated.
So there was a lot of criticism about Raw this week. I definitely think SmackDown was clearly a better show, but look. We could either, and I do want to do, I saw WWE put out an Instagram post where it's the top 5 men in wrestling, and it was the Man, Becky Lynch, was number 1. The Big Boss Man was on the list. The $1 Million Man was on the list.
Oh.
And I like that list.
Repo Man?
He wasn't on the top 5.
Oh.
I was going to reorder it because you guys know I like to reorder those top 5 lists on this show. We don't have time to do it this week. I might do it next week.
Okay, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to do it at some point. But I thought it was more important to address Raw and criticisms of it that people had. And instead of picking apart Raw and going this is why it sucked, I don't like this show, this is why the ratings are in the toilet. Because that's not, I never have been that guy. I don't like doing that. I thought we should redo Raw. Let's look at what's on the plate for Raw and how we can reorganize a lot of it to make it into a show that is can't miss.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I thought a lot about it, believe it or not.
This is cool. Okay, go for it.
Okay, so I think it's a little bit of a mess right now because, and this has happened on Raw before, you've kind of got two main event storylines in the sense that you've got Rollins and Ambrose over here. You've got Corbin and Braun over here. The Universal title is not in play, which makes it awkward. And these two stories aren't really in play with each other. Also, Braun Strowman's injured and we don't know if he's going to be at the pay-per-view. So it's trying to figure all this out. You get why it could be messy.
Does he count as a man too, by the way?
Braun?
Yeah.
Well, he's a monster among men, so no.
But in the top 5 list, is he that count?
Because the $1 Million Man, the monster among men?
No, Braun Strowman. It was a late thought, but
that's awesome.
Accurate.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Strowman is a man. Oh, I'm glad you're here because I think I got to add that to my list now. So, I think there is a lot of work that needs to be done.
Okay, go for it.
So I think that after this week, no more mention of Braun Strowman. Maybe he'll be at the pay-per-view, maybe he won't, but just no more mention of it because people are so sick. Like, we're losing a lot of guys. Like, Roman disappeared. You just see when it's injuries or sicknesses or whatever it is, when guys leave unexpectedly, it's difficult for fans to adjust to that. And I think that it needs to feel not like we're figuring out as we go or we're leaving it needs to not feel like we're leaving our options open. I want to watch Raw and feel every week like whether I know what the direction is or not, there is a solid direction going here. I think that because Braun is at least injured, and now there is a possibility that he's not going to make the TLC pay-per-view, I think that next week when we start Raw, we need to have an interaction. Right now, the heel faction is Baron Corbin, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre. I don't know why Drew stopped hanging out with Dolph all of a sudden, but he doesn't hang out with the guy anymore.
Right.
It is what it is. And, of course, the amazing Lio Rush. By the way, I know people think it's stupid. I like the Bobby Lashley glute gimmick where he leans over and shows everybody his butt. I think that that's funny. I think it's so odd and weird that I'm like, I find that entertaining.
Of course you do.
I think that that's funny.
Of course you do.
That Bobby Lashley is basically doing the Ace Ventura butt talk gimmick. I think that I'd like that. I think it's funny. Me personally. I don't know if I'm the only one.
Catering to people just like you, Sam.
Well, I'm a wrestling fan.
Yep.
I would hope that they are. So, I think here's what I would love to see happen is we get to Raw next week and Baron Corbin is really acting like the boss of this group. And he is really bossing around Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley, right? Just really like classic heel, I'm the boss, you guys do what I say type of stuff, right? And that's how we start the show. And then we start to get the feeling towards the end of that first hour that Drew and Bobby are not cool with that, right? And Drew and Bobby are like talking to each other. And then as the second hour goes on, we hear, Drew and Bobby are talking, we need to do something about this. Maybe we need to prove to Baron who the real man is, who's really in charge here. You know what I mean? And there's that sort of like, Baron may have overstepped here, right? And we get the feeling that we've got some kind of six-man main event. We've got some main event where all three guys are going to be teaming together. But now, Baron, being unaware that he is, doesn't realize that Bobby and McIntyre are not happy with him and are probably going to turn on him tonight. And the fans are going like, yeah, I'm down for that. Good, I don't like Baron Corbin, right? So, there's chicanery involved in the tag match. Baron Corbin is tagging at inconvenient times. He's just doing typical heel, boss stuff. Where if it's a scary guy, he's not tagging in. If somebody's about to get the pin, he reaches and does the tag that nobody asked for type of stuff, right? I think that at the end of the match, the bad guys lose. Maybe Drew McIntyre gets pinned or something because Baron wasn't there to save him. And Bobby Lashley and Drew finally bow up to Baron Corbin, or bow up, or whatever the expression is. They look like they're going to kick his ass. And people go, oh, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. And all of a sudden, Bobby turns on Drew. And Baron turns on Drew. And Bobby and Baron start putting the boots to Drew McIntyre. I think that we accelerate the babyface good guy turn of Drew McIntyre. I think that we do Corbin versus McIntyre at the pay-per-view. Braun, even if he's better by the pay-per-view, bring Braun back the night after the pay-per-view, heading towards the Royal Rumble, because he's not going to be there to lead up to the pay-per-view anyway. So for TLC, change the match. Stephanie comes out the week after and says, at TLC, to be the general manager, you're going to now have to beat Drew McIntyre. Because clearly we're heading in that direction anyway, right? At some point, Drew McIntyre is going to be a good guy. I mean, he's the guy, he's everything WWE's been looking for, and he's in not only the best shape, but mentally, he's in the best place that he's ever been in to be that person. So, I would accelerate that. I would do Corbin versus McIntyre at TLC, have McIntyre win, and then go on to have a rivalry with Bobby Lashley. Braun Strowman can come back after the pay-per-view and restart his rivalry with Baron Corbin until we get to WrestleMania, where or fits around with Baron Corbin for a while as we head towards Brock Lesnar versus Braun Strowman for the Royal Rumble. And you're sitting there going, well, if Drew McIntyre beats Baron Corbin, he just lost his position as Raw General Manager. And you're right, Linendoll. He's not Raw General Manager anymore because Alexa Bliss is now given control of the entire show. Baron Corbin is the bitter ex-general manager, maybe even assigned to be Alexa's assistant by Stephanie McMahon. And Alexa is now the full-time general manager of Monday Night Raw. I think you go over to the women's division and clearly there were issues with the Tamina, Nia Jax, Ronda Rousey whole segment on Raw. Like, it just didn't click. And I think we need to be brought up to speed with the fact that Tamina is a real threat. It's been so long since we've seen Tamina do significant things. I think we need to see Tamina kick the crap out of Ronda Rousey backstage. I think we need to see Tamina become this real threat. We already know Nia's a threat. She broke Becky Lynch's face. So I want to know that Tamina is not just her friend, but also somebody that could take out Ronda on her own. I think we need to get to Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins. And Dean Ambrose needs to go back to being dangerous, like lunatic fringe, in the sense that he's doing kind of what Tamina's doing. At any given moment, he could just sneak up. He's not running away from Seth Rollins. He's actively looking to hurt Seth Rollins.
In getting his flu shots.
Yeah. No more flu shots. No more flu shots where he's cringing at needles.
He's being proactive.
No, I know. He's got those vaccines. They're important. Mm-hmm. I got my vaccines too.
I didn't know the rabies one came in the hip.
It is. Well, okay. Do you not have a rabies vaccine?
I thought I did.
You look into it.
I'm sure I do with all my travels.
I would hope so, especially with all your travels.
I can't keep them straight. You should see my forms.
Well, yeah. I want to see your hip and see a puncture wound in it from a rabies vaccine. But I think that Dean should be around every corner, not hiding behind every corner. I think that he should be there looking to hurt Seth Rollins, and I think we should get more clarification behind the attack. We still don't really know why Dean turned on Seth, and I'm starting to get worried that it's not going to be explained. I think that Dean should call Seth out and say, when I saw you cry those crocodile tears when Roman announced what Roman announced, it just reminded me what a phony you were. You're the one who turned on Roman Reigns. And now you're crying because of what happened to him, blah, blah, blah. Take on that thing. So it's not just I'm a crazy guy who beat you up. Let me know that you don't buy the fact. Because when you look at that shot, Rollins is crying. Ambrose is not crying.
That doesn't... Some people aren't as emotional.
Look, it's on TV. It's safe for storyline.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
right. So Ambrose can sit there and almost be defensive about the fact that he wasn't crying and accuse Seth Rollins of faking it. Because he's a bad guy. That's what a bad guy would do. That's a bad guy. Not a nice thing to do, is it? It's a rotten thing to do. To see somebody in their time of grief and be like, you're not that sad. Is that cool or no?
Well, you know how I feel about this storyline. So
look, we're already there.
I know.
We're already there. It's not cool. But Ambrose isn't cool. He's the lunatic fringe. Remind me that he's the lunatic fringe. And let's have Renee objecting a little bit to what he's doing.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Not just saying, I don't know what he's doing. Be like, oh my God, I don't... Get a little concerned. I don't know this guy. You know what I mean? That's what I want to hear from Renee. I don't know who this guy is. This isn't the guy that I met. We're obviously acknowledging that there's that connection there, right? On commentary. It's saying without saying that we are acknowledging that they're married. So let's have Renee kind of be worried herself.
Well, she did say she lives with a guy and he's not always predictable.
Right, but not with worry. Renee did it with a sense of I know something that I'm not telling you. Which is one route to go. I didn't have a problem with it. But I would rather see her almost scared. Who is this person? You know what I mean? Because it's so... if you're going to take something so sacred and make an angle out of it, you got to go all the way. Otherwise, it's for naught, if that makes sense. I I think that Mustafa Ali should have been the Seth Rollins mystery opponent. I think that we should see a Mustafa Ali versus Seth Rollins match on Raw just because it would be such a good match. I don't think Mustafa Ali should be the Intercontinental Champion, but I think that, I think they should be doing more with Mustafa Ali on that show. Like, he's so good. He represents a portion of the population that's not represented on Raw. And I just think that I would have Seth this week come out and do another open challenge and have Mustafa Ali answer it. Do a good 2-segment, 3-segment match where everybody looks at Mustafa Ali differently. And then Dean Ambrose comes in and just ruins it for everybody. Why not?
Can I press pause on one item that you hit from the top?
Yeah.
You're giving a lot of power to this Baron Corbin situation.
He's the general manager.
I know.
It should be it is what it is. I mean, that's the storyline.
I'm kind of surprised it resurfaced as heavily as it is.
The general manager position it's the Stephanie McMahon storyline. I mean, how could that be secondary?
With Baron Corbin?
Well,
I'm asking you.
Right now, yes. But in order to not be with Baron Corbin, make it about Drew McIntyre.
Then you extended it all the way. You extended it. If you kept Baron in there, even if you were to get rid of him in the general manager position.
Well, I like Baron Corbin.
You like him in that position?
He's a good bad guy.
That's a headline position.
He's a good bad guy. He's big. He's mean. People boo him. And he's a decent wrestler. He's a good wrestler. People don't like him. That's rare. You know what I mean? Like, there's not that many bad guys that people don't like. People don't like Baron Corbin.
All right.
And that's why for me, I'm like, yeah, like I would absolutely keep Baron Corbin at the top of the card as a bad guy. And he loses a lot because he's a bad guy. Like, that's what he's there for. But people, I think, will pay to see Baron Corbin get beaten up.
If not in that GM position anymore, you still think, to your point, you're going to keep him.
I think he's a good foil for Braun Strowman in the sense that he's a big guy too. It looks impressive when Braun Strowman beats up Baron Corbin.
Really?
For the time being. I mean, it's not WrestleMania main event.
All right.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah.
Resume.
Okay. I think you got to pick a tag team and go with it. There is so much stop and start with the tag team division. I would put a lot of money behind the Revival right now. I mean, people forget that they had match of the year in NXT. Like, do you remember watching them in NXT? You don't.
Yes, but not heavily.
Right.
There's not heavy memories there.
But guess what? They were the best tag team in NXT.
No.
They literally won match of the year. They literally won match of the year in NXT. And that's a pretty major accomplishment. They were a really hot commodity in NXT.
What do you do differently?
You have them win a whole bunch. You don't have them win one week and lose the next week, and one week they beat this big team, and the next week they lose to Lucha House Party, and you know what I mean? That's what I mean about picking one. You got to start. You got to start showing some dominant teams, and I would put the Revival as a dominant team, not put the tag titles on them, right away. I would turn Bobby Roode heel right away. I would say that, let the Authors of Pain, Bobby Roode, Chad Gable thing continue, but get to a pay-per-view or some kind of headline where Bobby Roode turns on Chad Gable and says, why didn't you stop him from pissing on my robe, or whatever he has to say. But I think Bobby Roode has to be a heel at this moment. And now, honestly, I think it would be good for Chad Gable because it would maybe make Chad Gable sympathetic, and I think Chad Gable's the man. I know you like Chad Gable a lot. So, I think that could be a good position for Chad Gable as well if he now had a rivalry with Bobby Roode. And finally, because Seth Rollins is such a big star, I think Seth Rollins should be the guy to fight Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania.
Wow.
In order to get there, the Intercontinental title has to go off of him. I think that we get, after TLC, we get the Intercontinental title back on Dolph Ziggler, and that's where Finn Balor goes. We have a nice little Intercontinental title chase between Finn Balor and Dolph Ziggler, because otherwise Finn Balor gets lost in the sauce a lot. And that, I think, it'd be good matches. It would be something good to do with the IC title. Dolph Ziggler is on the risk of getting lost in the sauce because he doesn't have Drew McIntyre by his side anymore. And I think that if you go there, you got something. So now, that's where I have it. Tamina cemented as a badass. Dean Ambrose is a violent, brutal lunatic with a reason behind what he's doing. Drew McIntyre is a good guy who's going to beat Baron Corbin. Alexa Bliss for general manager. The Revival for a tag team to be reckoned with. Bobby Roode turns on Chad Gable. Mustafa Ali gets highlighted more. Finn Balor versus Dolph Ziggler for that Intercontinental title. Eventually, Seth Rollins versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania, with Seth Rollins winning the Universal title clean from Brock. That's how I felt watching Raw.
That was strong, dude.
That
was strong. That was thought out.
Yes.
It was organized.
That's what I'd like to see. I think it'd be cool.
Well done.
Cool.
Well done.
Cool. You agree with it? You're okay with it?
I think it was strong. I don't agree with all parts.
It's a lot of parts.
Yeah.
A lot of parts.
Yeah, there's some Tetris happening.
Yeah.
There, the long white piece isn't coming in just yet. But I see where you're going.
But it'll get there.
Yeah.
Well, if anybody knows Tetris, it's tech expert Katie Linendoll. Katie, of course, they can find you on Twitter and Instagram at Katie Linendoll. Where else can they get a hold of you?
Oh, my goodness. I'm in crazy holiday season.
That's right.
I'm all over TV, from Today Show to Rachel Ray to Weather Channel.
You got gifts?
CBS Sports Radio. Oh, my gosh, it's gifting season.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a website?
Katie.gifts.
I thought so.
Thank you for asking. In action for holiday.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. And that's the place to go to find gifts for whoever you need.
Yes.
All right. Well, Katie Linendoll, it's always a pleasure to have you here. We always get to the bottom of things, don't we?
We sure do.
I think so, too. Thank you very much. We will see you next time on Notsam Wrestling.
Thanks for listening. Follow at Notsam on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Rate, review, and subscribe. This has been Notsam Wrestling.